The FDA is the only thing standing between you and the money-hungry pharmaceutical industry it's meant to regulate. Its noble job is to ensure everything you put in your body is safe and effective.
Safe and effective.
Safe and effective.
Safe and effective.
But what would happen to public health if the FDA was compromised?
People say that the FDA is broken. Is it?
Right now, there are over 10,000 additives allowed in the American food supply. The FDA has formally reviewed fewer than half of them. The rest? The companies that sell them decided they were safe. No independent testing required. No mandatory FDA sign-off. No public disclosure. Just a quiet internal decision made by the same people profiting from the ingredient, and then silence. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's written into federal law. It has a name, and it's been running your food supply since 1958. To understand how we got here, you need to go back to 1958. That year, Congress passed the Food Additives Amendment, a law designed to protect the public by requiring manufacturers to prove new ingredients were safe before putting them in food. On paper, it sounded airtight, but buried inside that law was an exemption, a small carve-out for substances that were generally recognized as safe, meaning ingredients that experts already widely agreed were harmless. Things like vinegar, salt, basic compounds that had been used for generations. The acronym was GRAS, and at the time, it made sense. Nobody thought salt needed a clinical trial. But here's where the story changes. Over the following decades, food science exploded. New emulsifiers, synthetic preservatives, chemical flavor enhancers, compounds that had never existed in nature, let alone in a human stomach. And instead of treating these as new additives requiring full review, the food industry began quietly filing them under GRAS, not because experts universally agreed they were safe, but because the law never clearly defined who those experts had to be, or whether the FDA had to be one of them. Here's where it gets darker. In 1997, the FDA, overwhelmed and underfunded, formalized what had been an informal practice for years. They introduced a voluntary notification program. Companies didn't even have to tell the FDA they were adding a new substance to the food supply. They could simply conduct their own safety review, declare the ingredient GRAS, and start putting it in products. Voluntarily, secretly, legally. Between 1997 and 2012, an independent analysis found that out of roughly 1,000 GRAS determinations made by companies, the FDA was notified of fewer than 300 of them. The rest were made entirely in the dark. And who was conducting these safety reviews? In nearly every documented case, scientists and consultants hired and paid by the same companies seeking approval. A 2013 study published in JAMA Internal Medicine reviewed hundreds of GRAS panels and found that not a single one included a conflict of interest-free reviewer. Not one. This wasn't a broken system. This was the system. So what slipped through? Let's talk about a few. Titanium dioxide, a whitening agent used in candies, chewing gum, and salad dressings. The European Food Safety Authority banned it in 2022 after concluding it could not be considered safe, citing potential DNA damage. In the United States, it remains GRAS. Still in your food today. Carrageenan, derived from seaweed, used as a thickener in dairy alternatives, infant formula, and deli meats. Multiple studies have linked it to intestinal inflammation and gastrointestinal damage. The FDA reviewed a citizen petition to ban it and took over a decade to respond. It's still approved. BHA and BHT, synthetic antioxidants used to preserve fats in cereals, chips, and packaged foods. The National Toxicology Program has listed BHA as reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen. It remains on the GRAS list. These aren't obscure ingredients. They're in products sitting in your kitchen right now, and none of them went through a single independent human trial before entering your body. But this isn't just a story about regulatory loopholes and chemical compounds. It's a story about real people. Take the case of carrageenan. that seaweed-derived thickener we mentioned. For years, parents of infants with severe gastrointestinal problems reported the same pattern: chronic inflammation, unexplained digestive distress. Doctors couldn't find a cause. What many of them eventually traced it back to was infant formula. Formula marketed as gentle, as natural, as safe for the most vulnerable bodies on Earth. Bodies that had never been tested with carrageenan in them. The Cornucopia Institute, a food advocacy organization, spent years compiling parent testimonials and petitioning the FDA to remove carrageenan from organic infant formula. Parents described watching their newborns writhe in pain after every feeding, switching formulas, switching again, desperately reading labels they didn't have the scientific background to decode. The FDA sat on that petition for over a decade. Carrageenan remained in organic infant formula until 2018, not because the FDA acted, but because the National Organic Standards Board voted to remove it from the organic certification list. The FDA never banned it. It's still in non-organic products today. And then there's the broader picture: the rise of ultra-processed food, products built almost entirely from GRAS-approved synthetic compounds, now accounts for over 60% of the average American's daily caloric intake. Researchers at the NIH published a landmark controlled study in 2019 showing that people eating ultra-processed diets consumed on average 500 more calories per day. Not because they were hungry, but because the engineered combination of additives, texturizers, and flavor compounds disrupted the body's natural satiety signals. 500 calories every day without realizing it. The obesity epidemic, the metabolic disease crisis, the explosion in inflammatory conditions that doctors struggled to explain for decades. All of it unfolded while thousands of untested compounds quietly entered the food supply, approved by the companies selling them, invisible to the agency meant to protect you. These aren't statistics. They're people who got sick and never knew why. In 2016, the FDA finally updated its GRAS regulations for the first time in decades. The reform? Companies were encouraged, not required, to notify the FDA of new GRAS determinations. Encouraged. As of today, the FDA estimates there may be thousands of GRAS substances currently in the food supply that the agency has never seen, evaluated, or even heard of. They don't know what's in your food. They were never legally required to. And the companies that put it there made sure it stayed that way. The next time you read a nutrition label and see an ingredient you can't pronounce, understand that the question isn't whether you know what it is. The question is whether anyone ever actually tested it. Because if it carries the GRAS label, there's a real chance the only person who ever decided it was safe and was the person selling it to you. This is controlled narrative.